evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What's Up With That, the show that brings you interesting people, places, cultures, and subcultures here in the South Bay, the San Francisco Bay Area, the state of California, and beyond. And tonight, what's up with that? What's up with that all about? And how did this show get started? Well, we've done this show for several seasons, and I must say that it has not only enhanced my awareness of the world, but given me a different perspective on people. I've come to realize through all this, through my own prejudices that I had to deal with, that, we're all the same. Really, people have all their interests, and, we can't condemn them. We need to really try to understand them, and that's the reason why we do this every month and every week, and that's why we're here. Today we're going to talk about this whole process and the years, the 14th season of this show, and some of the goods and the bads and the things that we've gone through here with my co-producer, Loretta Beavers. Loretta, what's up?
All right.
All right, well, let's get started with this madness. So how did this madness get started? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. We were in class together. We were taking class from Dave Barney. He was teaching studio production, and we ended up on a project together where we were talking about hate crimes.
Right.
And during this time, we got a guy to come on and host the show on hate crimes. And I just remember he was terrible because
Yes, he was.
because Access producers, we just, it's all off the cuff generally. And we had him read from a teleprompter.
Right.
And, he had a hard time keeping a hold of the teleprompter, and faster and slower.
And the teleprompter was having problems because at one point, I remember it started going real slow.
Yes.
And because you're students, when you're in a student production, and then it starts going fast, and
right.
And then I thought also with that particular segment, which I thought was good, even though it was like an hour and a half long, it was massively long, was that we had people who had relationships outside of the studio, not like personal relationships, but relationships where they had come, against each other in certain situations.
You mean the guests or
the guests?
Okay,
and so it created a little bit of a havoc there. So what did we learn from that experience?
Well, I think we learned a lot. We learned not to give too much of a script to someone who's used to doing it off the cuff, which is why I think your speech has kind of evolved over time. You've memorized it. You've kind of developed it yourself, but it's not something that you have written on a card anywhere or teleprompter.
I wouldn't be able to do that anyways. It's just, it would take the fun out of it.
I think it would.
So let me ask you a question. Do you remember, this is a good one, the trivia, what's up with that trivia? What was the original name of this show? Oh, come on, let's see if you can remember. I can.
I don't remember. I know that I called it this because you used to say, what's up with that all the time. And I'm like, well, we should just call the show that. But I don't remember what it was originally called.
Beyond Mainstream.
Oh, yes! Beyond Mainstream.
Remember, then we kept talking about it. It sounds like really, really boring, so we better move on to something else.
Yeah,
so
that's...
The first season, the first show, okay, I was terrified, all right? So we have Harley Davidson people.
Yes.
Now, let me just tell you viewers about what it's like to do your very first show. First of all, we had crew from our TV show.
Yes.
And we'll talk about this TV show crew in just a minute. But so the guy shows up. I have no idea. I'm totally nervous. He brings in this bike. And do you remember what happened with the bike?
It leaked oil in the studio.
Right. so we're at a studio now, and it's leaking fumes. And we're trying to pretend like nothing's going on because the show must go on.
And he was not the best of guests in that he was just really relaxed. And relaxed is kind of cool as a personal lifestyle, but if you have a relaxed person, they're a terrible guest because they're just like, oh yeah, that was fine.
Well, you see them through the screen. You're seeing 4 different or 3 different camera angles. What do you think constitutes, from what you're thinking, and then I'll tell you what I think as well, makes a good guest? What's a good guest?
A good guest tends to be knowledgeable about what the topic is. I remember our first show on medical marijuana, we found experts. And
stoned experts.
They were stoned and they were not knowledgeable. And so they had a lot of monosyllabic answers. So a good guest is excited about what their topic is. And a little hyper is good, so sometimes a little nervous. And I think you help make them comfortable. I've heard again and again from guests that they really loved being on this show because you made them feel really comfortable. And I know all the little stories you tell about all our little mishaps and all your little mishaps help really set them at ease.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one thing too, because I think television, it can be real intimidating to people. You know, I think they really think that it's, you know, well, it's a whole different experience for them. I guess that's the best thing. And if you haven't been in front of a television camera before, you know, you start thinking about all these things they say about TV and how it's going to make you look this way or that way or whatever.
Right.
For me, interviewing a good guest is somebody who has a personal story to tell that's attached to knowledge. You know, for me, I have trouble with a guest who comes with a really prepared speech. It seems like, you know, preaching to the choir. And that has happened in several occasions. And after a while, it's kind of like I feel the aim of our show is really to show the human side of an issue. I mean, I think that's the best way to put it.
Yes.
So when you said about the medical marijuana for the first time we had them, I mean, they came in and it was almost like a joke, kind of.
It was a very sad. I was very disappointed, which is why when we had the people on a couple months ago, that was much more the kind of atmosphere and knowledge that I wanted to show off the first time.
Right. So we've gone through all these seasons, you know. It's amazing. I think it's wonderful, and kudos to the crew, you know, that they have stuck with it. So now let's look at the other side. What makes for a poor guest, in your opinion?
Well, as I mentioned with the Harley Davidson guy, I mean, he's a nice guy, but he was just too laid back. Or we had surfers on, and they were really laid back. They're just, you know, kind of relaxed. So, yeah.
Yeah, but
and there's no good answers in that. You know, it's
that
nice that they're relaxed, but that's not helpful to us.
There's a great answer, though, for the surfer show, because you were in the booth, and one of them, 20 seconds, this is the kind of thing that happens in TV in here that you don't see, okay?
Okay.
So we're just getting ready to roll, and it's like 15 seconds, you know, we're just whatever, getting the countdown. Actually, we're into the countdown, and all of a sudden there's this, okay, and one of those surfers let the most deadliest, stinkiest fart. This is so tacky to put on TV. So we had to get through the intro, and this thing lingered like a cloud.
Oh dear.
For like 25 minutes.
Well, there's no, you know, air circulation in here because that interferes with television.
So yes, and so does the scent of the infamous surfer. And funnier in that show was, do you remember the opening shot of that?
No.
Okay, so remember we set up a beach scene, right? Everyone brought in their.
Oh yes.
And then do you remember what happened?
I think like the umbrella fell over.
The whole thing fell over.
Yeah, that was not.
Yes, and so we kept rolling just because we thought it would be funny to humiliate Mr. Andrew, which is one of their favorite things to do. So.
Well, yes, I mean you're an easy target, definitely.
So okay, so good guess over the years. Okay, I mean I would think. Probably when we had Gwen Arroyo's mother on.
Oh, yeah. I was not there for that episode. I was in Japan.
But just the story that she told that only a mother could tell when a transgender son who had already gone through a lot. You know, that's the purpose of our show really, is to show that side of it too, because we did transgender San Francisco and that's important, but there's also this terrible, terrible murder that happened here.
Yes.
And so, you know, to bring on the mother and to find out a human side, I think, like I said, I think that's the importance of what we do, you know, and you accentuate it with the way you put the show together. And so that's the kind of show that I think that's our message when it comes down to it.
It is, and I think pretty much it also works on our curiosity because, I mean, I don't understand why people need to change their gender, and that's why having transgender people on to talk about that definitely helped explain that somewhat for me, although apparently they don't know either. They just know they have to.
But now, and to add to that, it also offers hope for the people that are out in the audience the viewers who, you know, might be going through these same kind of issues and really don't have a support network or somebody who agrees, is on their side, I guess. You
Right,
know?
right.
You know, and I think we've offered that.
Well, and I think there's, you know, other people like us that we don't know about the topic, and just like they don't know about the topic. And so explaining it to them, or having the people talk about what they're going through or what their group does, it helps humanize it, and it helps make it less scary and less, you know, kind of freaky.
Yeah, I mean, and that's important because you think about the shows that we've done. We've always, you know, we've taken risks. I think that's important that we take risks. I don't think it would be as exciting for me if we didn't take risks. That's what it's all about. But I mean, one thing I must say to our credit, and that we've made this pact together, that we will never trash a person on TV, no matter what.
Right.
You know, no matter what they're saying, because that's not our point.
No, I think if there's something that's a little controversial, usually they're able to hang themselves with their own rope. If they just come and explain their point, then we understand the point better, and maybe there's no rope to be hanging themselves with.
And if you look over the years at some of the shows, we'll get into the technical stuff in a minute, but some of the shows that we've done, remember, how can we forget the Church of Satan?
Oh, that was such a fun show. Everyone was telling me that I was going to die horribly and they were going to come murder me in my sleep.
Right, and misperceptions, again.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, I'm expecting that I'm going to come and they're going to tell me how they slaughter animals. And, you know, and do all these terrible things to children and all this stuff, and it wasn't anything like that at all. And see, that's the point of our show.
Exactly.
It's what's up with that. We get there's got to be someone there to...
He was a very nice guy, if a little nervous, and it's like any other kind of strict religion where they had, you know, strict precepts that they had to do, and you know, strict punishments if you mess up with that, or but you know, there's other strict religions out there too.
And I remember another focus of ours that I really like is with like inventions and those kinds
creativity,
of things.
yes.
Creativity, and finding the, you know, you can talk about that. Talk about like the Ren Fair and the people that you brought on.
Oh yes, I'm very interested in how people make things and how they do things. So definitely with the Renaissance Fair, I was very interested in the costumes and how they put together, because it's a historical thing, but they're recreating history, and so that's very interesting to find out.
And the costumes and the whole...
And the costumes and the way that they cook, because they try to do things very authentically. And a lot of these people carry over into other interests, so you can find people who learn to weave, and then they can carry over into more technical things and other things like that.
Okay, well, we're going to take a short station break, and we'll be back to talk more about what's up with that. So we'll be right back.
Hi, my name's Carol. I'm with the Asian American Donor Program, and we recruit ethnic minority donors for the National Marrow Donor Program Registry. And I would like to encourage all healthy individuals between the ages of 18 and 60 that are ethnic minority to join the Be the Match Registry and help save a life. Check us out by going to www.aadp.org or call us at 800-593-6667.
Hi, I'm Ted Lempert, president of Children Now. We're a children's advocacy organization that seeks to ensure that every child has the opportunity to reach their full potential. We put out studies and a report card on how children are faring. So we encourage you to come to our website, childrennow.org, where you can get information on how children are doing in your community and throughout the state, and ensure that every child has the opportunity to reach their full potential.
Hi, welcome back to What's Up With That, and we are What's Up With That. We're the crew that does a lot of the nitty-gritty work, and then we have the crew here who are
thick
just
and thin, that's right.
But fantastic, just fantastic.
Absolutely.
Crew. The best, I must say, the best.
Yes.
One thing that I wanted to say is why we started the show. Actually, I started the show with the concept.
Right. You came up with the concept, and you came to me and some of the other people in the class with this concept. And why don't you explain it further?
Well, the concept was that, first of all, I was tired of trash TV, you know, especially talk show trash TV. You know, at the same time we had trash radio and all these kinds of things. And the images that we were giving is they were really ripping on people, you know?
They are. They do.
I mean, they were picking on certain people, and it was, you know, the homosexuals and the
dysfunctional people.
Yeah,
the people who have different hobbies than what is considered normal.
Right. Anybody that, you know, costumers or anything, just things that people, easy targets. I guess that's the best thing. You know, the vulnerable. And, you know, living in San Jose, to my amazement, this has been my amazement with this whole show, was how really easy it is to find guests.
There's everything
I
there.
mean, and
everything.
you know, and I say it so many times in my intro, and I know for the viewing audience, you probably heard it a million times, that, you know, we are kind of tired of being at the heel of San Francisco because there's so much stuff here. It's just that people here don't have access to access television, which they have now. I mean, so, you know, and the cool thing about it, and I think, you know, how we can congratulate ourselves on this, is that people contact me now, you know, and it's a little different. And finding a guest is a lot easier because we've established a name for ourselves.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they consider San Francisco to be the cultural hub.
Right.
But San Jose has all this stuff. It's just kind of more low key, more relaxed, more approachable, really.
Really, yeah. And you have to look a little harder, you know, but it only goes to say that, you know, there's a lot going on in San Jose, and so we're proud of our community.
Oh, absolutely.
So we do a show. Okay, you're in the booth. You're looking at me, you know, mocking me.
Yes. Very easy to do.
I do want to point out that the crew absolutely loves to mock me, and they think I don't hear it, which is the best because I can hear it. But I'm all right with that. I'm over it, okay? After this long of time, it's actually kind of a show of affection.
It is. It
you
is
know?
definitely affection. I mean, yes, I tease you because you tend to want to tell stories about yourself and your childhood and your experiences in Guam when we're trying to do a show about, you know, art cars or something.
Right.
And
I have to admit, I could throw Guam into any conversation.
You can. You've become so expert at that.
I
It's
have.
just amazing.
Half a day totamale.
I have no idea what that means, but I'm sure it means something
It means
nasty.
hello, how are you?
Okay.
Okay, so the show, now planning a show, okay, usually we both sit down and we really start thinking out shows. And we've had some shows that have been pretty hectic. And let's face it, there's some shows that just should probably have been split into 20 shows. I can think of one offhand where I think, you know, it was my fault because I called up 3 or 4 Star Wars people.
Oh, yes, the Star Wars
Can we
show.
ever forget this one?
God.
Okay, so picture, do you remember we come walking in here, and so we have the station manager is flipping out at me because I walk in the door and there is like 50 stormtroopers,
Oh, yes.
Ewoks,
Yes.
everything, and they're all
A couple
over
of
this
Darth
place.
Vaders.
And they're changing in where the, you know,
Jedis,
in the executive offices and everything.
Yes. They took over. And that's why I've tried to get really tight about having a certain limit of people because there were so many people there and we didn't get to talk to half of them because, as you said, we should have split that up into a couple of different shows. And I just didn't know the approach you wanted to that, so I didn't have a good set of questions for you. And so it just kind of devolved into this weird chaos. And I feel bad that we didn't really serve the Star Wars fan community because the stormtroopers, they raise money for children's toys.
Right.
There's all sorts of charity functions they do. They provide security at different conventions. There's all kinds of stuff they do that we didn't really get to hear about.
And the fact that we've done so many shows, actually, though, you know, our mission has been pretty sound, I must say.
I think so.
We've stood pretty firm on that. Awards, you know.
Yes.
That's always fun.
We have been very blessed. It's wonderful.
It's always nice to get recognized for what you do.
Definitely.
You know, but in the back of this, that's not really why we do it. You know, I mean, like I said before, we do it because it's a passion for us.
Yes.
And it is. It really is a passion. Let's talk about conventions.
Yes.
Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about Loretta and my convention situation. We are the convention goers that go to the convention and then go on a tour.
We're kind of peripheral to the different little meetings and classes and all that.
I mean, when we first started, we were a little bit more into that. But if there's something good, we'll certainly.
Right, and certainly when we started, they didn't offer very much programming for producers like ourselves. It was more for the station officials and other big kind of, the big people, not us, not the community
And then
producers.
the time when I get invited to be one of the keynotes for the producers panel.
Yes.
And all they talked about was, well, it was kind of, I felt like maybe there was some miscommunication or something, because most of the people in this workshop wanted to know how they can produce a show, right? Well, it turned into kind of a talk about legal issues and cable rights and these kinds of things. And pretty soon one guy stands up and said, can somebody here tell me what I need to do to produce a show?
Wow.
And I was the one that talked.
Right. I mean, obviously that the station that gentleman is affiliated with or wants to be affiliated with is not quite holding up their stuff. Although they've come a long ways, I would say, since then, because that was years and years ago. What with the internet, and they're trying very hard to have classes to help make sure that people in the community can produce the shows they want, because this is our television. This is community television.
Right.
This is
the voice of the people.
It is. It's the voice of the people.
At the very base level, it's the voice of the people.
Yes.
Okay, so once we have a show and it's done, then it goes to you to edit 25 years later.
All right. In theory, it's very easy to edit the show. I mean, we used to do the Chiron, which was the old graphics thing.
Right.
But those were kind of clunky, and the shows would be all kinds of different weird times. And they really should be 28 minutes and 30 seconds dead on, because some of the stations, they'll cut you off right after the 28:30.
And I'm one of the biggest offenders of that, because I get blah 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 of the mouth. So I mean, I'm certainly aware of that.
And so once I got the digital technology to do the editing at home on my computer, I was able to make sure that the show is the right amount, which I do in a couple different ways. I can make the credits a little shorter. I choose PSAs to kind of fuss with that. And I trim out your monologues when you're talking about something that really doesn't pertain to the thing. So there's lots about Guam that people don't know, because I've just cut that stuff
See,
right
that
out.
is a shame, because Guam is a beautiful island, and you
It is, and we should do a show about that.
Denying them of
we
the
should do a show
culture
about
of
that.
Beautiful little island. But that's beside the point.
Yes, it is.
That's just.
But then there's other shows, and and then I throw the tags on it to let people know who they are and the credits and everything. The hard shows are when we have to get footage or other things from outside. I mean, I love having visuals, like when we have dancing, or when people bring in pictures for their cars, or things like that. But it's also a little more annoying to edit, because then I have to go find music and make together little kind of video features, and it's harder to do. Or especially when we've done our little kind of segmented shows, like I have a show on the Maker Faire that is still in pieces, because I haven't figured out how to fit the pieces together, and the footage is kind of rough. And I think there's a gay pride out there too that I just haven't been able to put it all together.
That was a classic story, though. I do have to tell one of these classic stories.
Okay.
Because gay pride was a classic story. That one.
A couple of years they were, yeah.
But the one where we were filming, when the drunk guy fell through our tent, has to go through classic What's Up. That's at the top of the list.
That was so bizarre. It was like something from a different dimension or something. This guy comes up and he swears he knows me. And I don't know this guy from Adam. He's like, oh, how are you doing? I haven't seen you in ages. And I'm like, we're trying to do it. How do I get rid of this guy?
We're kind of on air.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, those are the kind of things that sort of, really, it's a learning process. So with each of these little things, and as the seasons have gone on, the shows have gotten so much more slicker, and just
they have.
We've gotten rid of the. Remember, we used to set up the temple sets. Remember, at the old.
Right, because they had those
Big
little
old
Grecian columns and stuff, and I'd still like to further fine tune the set, because the basic black is kind of cool, and the shoji screen is cool, and we've got some artwork here, the little woodpecker, but
in case you wanted to know what that was.
It's a woodpecker.
It's been one of the most ask questions by friends of mine that have seen it. What is that thing exactly on the? I like it though, so you know.
Yeah, it's cool. But I wouldn't mind, having things a little more fine-tuned than they are now. It's just, preparation, finding the time, since I'm behind on editing again.
Well, so we're getting closer to the end of the show, and I want you to think of a moment that you remember, like one of the best moments you can remember in the show from your perspective.
Well, there's so many. There have been so. I would say one of the things I'm more guilty of is I'm a very shy person. And so I'm very nervous when I go to meet the guests and have them fill out the forms. That's why I tend to delegate that to you or to Keith as production manager. But then after watching them interview, I feel like I know them so much better, then I'm much happier to go and talk to them.
Right.
And I hope they're not entirely freaked out by that. But there's a lot of guests where after they've spoken, it's just like everything that I wanted to know that I didn't know that I wanted to know.
Right.
Like we did the show on the Maker Faire, and Sherry Haas was just so well spoken. She explained all the different things about the putting together of the Maker Faire that I really wanted to know. Or this medical marijuana group we had a couple months ago. Again, it's just everything that I wanted to know, and I figured, our audience wanted to know too.
Okay, well, for me, I think the things that I remember the best shows that I can remember are the shows where there was where the person was in a situation where they were explaining something for the first time to a large audience, where they were put in a situation. That's the beauty of it, and they felt safe.
Yes.
Being on this show,
Yes.
there was that safety network going on, and that makes me feel proud, because the one thing that I want people to do is to be happy. And believe it or not, that's all the time we have to talk about the show.
Amazing.
We didn't even get to the conventions, which I mean, there's
Drunken Rampage.
Drunken Rampage, there's scandal. We didn't even get to the scandal. I'm so sorry. We'll have to come back with the what's up with that scandal some other time, like the time when they don't know where Andrew went. We won't talk about those. But anyways, to our viewing audience, thank you for sticking with us all these years. We are still going to be here for a long time. We are What's Up With That, and we're looking for you. We're looking for something interesting. And so, as always, if you are walking down the street and you see something interesting and you wonder to yourself, hey, what's up with that? Well, tune into our show, What's Up With That, and maybe you'll find exactly what you're looking for. We'll see you next week on What's Up With That. Good night, everybody. With that, the show that brings you interesting people, places, cultures, and subcultures here in the South Bay, the San Francisco Bay Area, the state of California, and beyond. And tonight, what's up with that? What's up with that all about? And how did this show get started? Well, we've done this show for several seasons, and I must say that it has not only enhanced my awareness of the world, but given me a different perspective on people. I've come to realize through all this, through my own prejudice, because at one point I remember it started going real slow.
Yes.
And because you're students, when you're in a student production, and then it starts going fast, and
right.
And then I thought also with that particular segment, which I thought was good, even though it was like an hour and a half long, it was massively long, was that we had people who had relationships outside of the studio, not like personal relationships, but relationships where they had come, against each other in certain situations.
You mean the guests or
the guests?
Okay,
and so it created a little bit of a habit that I had to deal with. That we're all the same. Really, people have all their interests, and we can't condemn them. We need to really try to understand them, and that's the reason why we do this every month and every week, and that's why we're here. Today we're going to talk about this whole process and the years, the 14th season of this show, and some of the goods and the bads and the things that we've gone through here with my co-producer, Loretta Beavers. Loretta, what's up?
All right.
All right, well, let's get started with this madness. So how did this madness get started? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. We were in
evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to what?
Class together. We were taking class from Dave Barney. He was teaching studio production, and we ended up on a project together where we were talking about hate crimes.
Right.
And during this time, we got a guy to come on and host the show on hate crimes. And I just remember he was terrible because
Yes, he was.
because Access producers, we just, it's all off the cuff generally. And we had him read from a teleprompter.
Right.
And, he had a hard time keeping a hold of the teleprompter and faster and slower.
And the teleprompter was having problems.